So now we start with consumption Edgeworth box. It is destined over total amount of X and Y that is available for A and B to consume in the market. A will have some amount of X and Y, and B will have some amount of X and Y. So A will have XA, Y, and B will have XB, YB, amount of X and B to initiate exchange such that both of them can maximize the utility. So I already drew the Edgeworth box, and it's quite simple to be honest. Consumption Edgeworth box will have Pareto efficiency when all gains from trade are exhausted or it is not possible to increase utility for one individual without reducing utility for another individual. This is obviously meaning of Pareto efficiency. There can be multiple Pareto efficient points within the Edgeworth box depending on initial endowment. The combination of all these points, including points of origin, represents consumption contract curve. All these points of Pareto efficiency point, when we join them, they become consumption contract curve. Consumers' equilibrium within consumption Edgeworth box will always be on the contract curve. It will take place at the point where the ICs are tangent to each other. They are also tangent to the budget line on offer in the market. So these are basically consumption Edgeworth box. All ICs are tangent to each other, similar to production Edgeworth box where isocons were tangent to each other. Now we draw the production possibility frontier or PPC. So, but let's first draw an Edgeworth box for this. So the Edgeworth box will something be like this: XA, YA, XB, YB, OB, and let's say this is some point where ICA is tangent to ICB, and these are some point y dash, sorry, x dash A and x dash B. Here, MRS of A is equals to MRS of B. Px by Py are equilibrium of consumption. So now we draw the production possibility frontier. So this line is tangent at, let's say, this point. E1, X1 and Y1. This is the contract curve. These are two iso indifference curves which are tangent to each other. And this is the budget line. This we all know. Slope of PPC is minus delta y by delta x or mcx by mcy. On the PPC, using production contract curve, this one, point E1 can be traced such that the economy produces x1 units of x and y1 units of y. Consumption Edgeworth box can be drawn using x1 and y1, keeping origin of A with origin of PPC at this point, and origin of B at E1. Here is the origin of B1, so this can be also seen as OA, OB. Same, this can be seen here. Consumer equilibrium take place when MRS A equals to MRS B equals to PX by PY. The slope of PPC is represented by MRT, which is also representation of MCX by MCY. The slope of PPC shows rate at which resources can be reallocated to transform one commodity to another. In equilibrium of exchange, it is required that MRS A equals to MRS B equals to MRT XY. So first of all, slope of PPC shows rate at which resources can be reallocated to transform one commodity to another. In equilibrium of exchange, it is required MRS of A equals to MRS of B equals to MRT of X and Y. This is because if MRS XY is greater than MRT XY, then consumers WTP willingness to pay for X in terms of Y is higher than cost of producing extra unit of X by sacrificing Y. The market will produce more X and less Y. It continues, but due to diminishing marginal product, MRT starts rising. With higher consumption of X relative to Y, MRS starts falling due to diminishing marginal utility. It continues till MRS equals to MRT. Similarly, if MRS XY is less than MRT, then market produces more Y due to diminishing returns. MRT falls, and with higher availability of Y for consumption, MRS rises till equilibrium is achieved at MRS equals to MRT. Therefore, general equilibrium requires production equilibrium, consumption, and exchange equilibrium as well. So there is something called grand utility possibility frontier as well, which represents The maximum possible utility that economy can achieve by reaching Pareto efficiency given its resources. It is the constraint within which society has to operate. So this is how GUPF looks like. Point on GUPF is decided by social welfare function. So these points are decided by social welfare function, but in India generally we give high preference to rich than poor. I don't know why I wrote this in my notes. There might be some reason. I need to check it out. So, but what is social welfare function? It represents a given relation to determine social welfare on basis of utility of individuals in the economy. So W is function of UA and UB. We will move into different types of social welfare function as well. But before that, I have skipped one part which I need to finish, which was utility possibility frontier. It is basically all possible frontier of utility of A and B such that they have maximum satisfaction. So utility possibility frontier, all possible frontier of utility of A and B such that they have maximum satisfaction after consuming all the commodities. So let me just draw it. It is concave utility possibility frontier because of convex ICs. So UA, UB, and it will be something like this. There would be a point like E3 dash dash. There is some point like E dash dash, and there is some point like E dash dash 2 on each curve. So concave utility possibility frontier because of convex ICs. The point E dash dash is MRS XYA is equals to MRS XYB is equals to MRT XY. MRT XY is equal to MCX upon MCY. On each utility possibility frontier, the economy will have a unique point of equilibrium which will correspond to all three conditions of general equilibrium: production, consumption, rate of exchange. Joining each unique point on each of UPF will derive GUPF. So after joining all these points, we'll get a GUPF, Grand Utility Possibility Frontier. So yeah, so GUPF is also amalgamation of all the points of general equilibrium in an economy. I think we can say that. So let's move on to different types of social welfare function. Yeah. The first one is classical welfare function, which is also known as Benthamite welfare function. It is additive welfare, simple one. W is equals to UA plus UB. Any increase in UA or UB will make society better off irrespective of distribution. Sorry, uh, irrespective of distribution. We know what are iso-welfare curves, where the welfare is same. For classical welfare, they would be like this, parallel to each other. K is constant here. Then we move on to Rawlsian welfare function. Social welfare improves only when the worst person in the society is made better off. So this is simple. So these will be L-shaped curves, iso-welfare curves. Utility is minimum of UA, sorry, welfare is minimum of UA and UB. Then we have Nitzchean welfare function. It says society becomes better off when best of individuals' conditions is improved. So WUA is maximum of UA which is opposite to Rawlsian. Nitzchean welfare function was given by Frederick Nitzchean. So it will be like this. Then we move to modern welfare function. So this was given by Bergson and Samuelson. This is WUA is equals to UA alpha UB1 minus alpha. So it will be somewhat like this. UA UB, this is W1, this is W2, so this point is optimal point for Pareto efficiency or bliss point. The point at which economy reaches maximum social welfare with a given GUPF, Grand Utility Possibility Frontier, represents Pareto efficiency in general equilibrium welfare. So let me just write it down. Point at which economy reaches maximum social welfare with a given grand utility possibility frontier. By the way, this is the GUPF. This is GUPF given represents Pareto efficiency in general equilibrium welfare. Now we move to Kaldor welfare distribution. So this can be seen as like this. So UA, UB, so this point is L, N, M, Z. The movement is this side. This point is K. This is U dash A, U double dash A. Yeah, I think it's labeled now. So after B reaches Z from K, so when we move from here to here, B distributes it to A so that they reaches point N. So B travels from K to Z and then Z to N by distributing this extra part to A so that they can reach the point N where both are better off. Then we have Kaldor Hicks welfare distribution, which is better version of Pareto efficiency. So Kaldor Hicks welfare distribution. So they say Pareto efficiency principle was improved by Kaldor and Hicks. Pareto's criteria was criticized for restricting the range of policies that will be available for policymakers. Pareto's policy choice remained restricted within K, L, and M, within K, L, and M. However, according to Kaldor, policy design can be wider. Kaldor provided compensation principle according to which if a policy makes one individual better off and other worse off, then it can be implemented provided that one who has become better off can compensate the other who has become worse off to accept the change in status quo. This implied that in Kaldor's principle, it is possible to consider any point on utility possibility frontier as policy option, then implement compensation. Hicks further contributed, suggesting that if it is not possible for loser to compensate winner for not changing status quo, then change in status quo is improvement. Okay, so let me just reiterate. So Kaldor said this part, which expanded role of policy making and a wider picture than Pareto efficiency. Now, contribution of Hicks. He said if it is not possible for the loser to compensate winners for not changing status quo, then change in status quo is improvement. However, if an economy has intersecting possibilities of GUPF, then it is possible that it incurs Schizowick's paradox. Let me just show what Schizowick paradox looks like. I don't know the exact pronunciation of this paradox, but it says that if these are intersecting, so point G, H, E, F, UA, UB. So if an economy has intersecting possibilities of GUPF, then it is possible that it incurs Kitsko- Scitovsky's paradox. According to Scitovsky's, if if GUPF intersects, then points like F and G becomes non-comparable. Yes. So points like these becomes incomparable. It is not possible to use transitivity for comparison. It can be claimed that F is better distribution than G because F lies on higher allocation than E, which is on same GUPF as G. But similarly, it can be shown that G is superior to F because G lies superior to H and H is on same GUPF as F. This was called paradoxical because Kaldor and Hicks principle, which was expected to simplify and expand decision making, resulted in creating a no solution possibility if GUPF intersected. So Skytskowski's suggested paradox can be resolved by double check criteria, that is, if winners can compensate the loser to change the status quo and losers cannot compensate the winners for not changing status quo. He showed that can happen only if two GUPF do not intersect each other. Next, we'll go to Arrow's possibility.